It is 6:30. Let's go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, stands nation, God, indivisible, justice for all.
All right, on to roll call, please.
Roll call is, of course, just the president, superintendent, and treasurer. But Mr. Bauer?
Here.
And Mr. Group? Here. And I'm here. Adoption of the meeting agenda, Records Commission.
So moved.
Second. Am I voting over?
No, it's actually just him.
Just me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Save. Okay. And then we have 5 action items. We should be all in one, but we did them separately. First one is the approve the RC3 for Middle School South in accordance with the RC2 that was adopted last year in 2024. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Okay, you're the line one. Sorry, I just gotta do this real quick. Number 2, approve the RC3 for the Special Ed Department in accordance with the RC2 we adopted last year. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Third one is approve the RC3 for Groveport Madison High School, and again, in accordance with the RC2 adopted last year. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Fourth one, approve the RC3 submitted by Sedaya Elementary in accordance with the RC2 adopted last year. Mr. Bauer? And last one, approve the RC3 as submitted by Dunlow in accordance with the RC2 adopted last year. Mr. Bauer? Okay. And the only other thing now is adjournment. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Bauer.
So moved.
At 6:32.
You're right.
Let's go ahead and start with our Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, on to our 5 principles of Cruiser PLC. Thank you so much. On to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Here.
Mrs. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Bauer,
Here.
Mrs. Dubber,
Here.
and Mr. Kershaw.
Okay, on to our review of belief statements and board norms. Madam Vice President.
Yes, sir. We believe all cruisers are valuable. We will unconditionally serve, support, and inspire. Therefore, every cruiser will maximize their unique purpose, potential, and power to produce the results they want. Board norms. As leaders of the district, we will always strive to support the mission and vision of the district, be prepared, informed, and ready for meetings, respect one another as elected representatives of the community, be open-minded, and recognize one another's strengths, the value of diverse perspectives, and mutual commitment to the mission and vision of the district. Allow members to complete their thoughts and statements before the others comment. Allow members to be heard and listen to all perspectives with an open mind. Stay focused on the task at hand and respectfully redirect each other when needed. Maintain confidentiality and communicate per board policies. Ensure trust and transparency in all dealings. And after a vote is cast, leave meetings united as one voice, no matter the outcome.
Thank you so much. On to adoption of the meeting agenda.
Second.
Mr. Bauer, we have an additional, an add-on for the bus trip for the regional finals at Springfield this weekend. So that was after we'd already finished and published the agenda.
So we can put that on to item G16.
Yes.
Or is it already on? It's on there.
It's in the new one. It's in the new one already.
So you have your full board packet, and then you have a new one at your seat. I think the paperclip one right there. It has the item added, and it has the handout along with it.
And Mr. President, colleague superintendent and treasurer, I would like to add a resolution, make a motion to add a resolution regarding funding of public education under F1. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And then
Where is that under S1?
F1.
F is in Foxtrot.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
And what is that resolution? Do you have a copy of it?
Yes, I'll be passing that out.
And take a moment to read it.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to add to the agenda. Thank you.
And why would we not just put this on the next meeting so that the public has an opportunity to see it?
We need to vote and then we can then do the discussion. And then you can vote it down if you choose when we do the item. I just was asking to add it to the board agenda, and then I can definitely explain and give background. at that time.
So we'll go on to roll call, and then we can do discussion under item F1.
Roll call to add it to the agenda or discuss it now? I thought we were voting on adding it to the agenda.
We're adding it
This
to
is to add it to the agenda.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a discussion before we do that roll call. Are
Okay.
you saying we shouldn't?
No, I just said all the details you're asking for. It's right there in front of you, and I
Right.
can explain that. But if you would like that, Ms. Walsh, that's perfectly fine. If you are in tune with the current Ohio Fair School Funding Plan, Uh,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's saying if
I can.
what's coming up on the screen is probably not what you're saying.
Okay.
Just a little.
So let me start over. Your question was that you wanted to know why now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so right now we have testimony at the State House for the School Funding Plan with the Ohio House Finance Committee. And after doing some additional research, I thought it would be great to share with my colleagues and that you all would join me in having a resolution for record on where we stand to ensure that we get the maximized or the most funding and that the funding plan is appropriate for all school districts, but specifically ours. I've talked to the treasurer. I don't know if anyone else has about the way that that funding plan is set up, and actually we'll be losing money. And so that is what this resolution speaks to, and that is what I'm presenting to our colleagues this evening. And there's testimony still going on at the State House, I believe. And I'm also, since we're talking about it, I've also written letters to the Ohio House Finance Committee, as well as try to schedule a meeting with the chair and vice chair of that committee, just because of what I'm seeing with the dollars. So I hope that answers your question, Ms. Walsh.
So you're saying the vote is going to be taken before our next board meeting? Is that the short answer?
No, the vote will be today.
Today?
The school funding.
Oh, school funding vote. I'm not sure when I just know testimony started on the 10th, if I'm not mistaken, ends on the 13th. I can pull up that right now. I don't have that screen up, but I think voting is pretty short.
Well, that was kind of my question is why would we not wait until the next board meeting so that the public has an opportunity and the board for that matter to read this resolution that's pretty lengthy and if it's not going to be going up for a vote, why would we add it now at the last minute? I haven't had this. That's, I
Mrs.
haven't had an
Walsh.
opportunity to really review this or research exactly what you're saying right now.
I
And if it doesn't
believe these
matter.
discussions are going on right now with what's going to go on with the funding. And whether the budget is finalized now, that there are a lot of active discussions with legislators about what's going to happen. As it is proposed right now, it does represent a loss of money for a lot of districts. So it's while the budget might not be passed before the next board meeting, the decisions are being discussed and possibly made.
And I would just like it for a record that we did that now while it was being discussed, and that can also, if that last page of the resolution shares how it will also be shared with the House Finance Committee, which then has all of us collectively supporting, looking into that, ensuring that it is the funding is actually appropriate and fair, because right now it's not.
And I would just like to state that the board has been receiving emails from OSBA. And we did have a discussion about it at the last board meeting.
Yeah, and testimony's going till
The 13th.
13th.
Correct. I just pulled up the House. Yep.
Any other discussion? If not, can I get roll call, please?
Were there any other items to add to the agenda? Okay, thank you.
Oh, and then I did want to see if we can make a motion to remove item F3, which is the diversity training, to postpone that until the April meeting.
So moved. Or second, I think.
Thank you.
Ms. Staudelberger as first, Ms. Gray as second.
And that is
So-
F3 to remove the diversity training.
To postpone till April.
So does that mean you're amending your original motion to add this?
No, the ad was separate, and then this was to postpone. So we need to vote on. There's two. Mhm.
Yes. So, all right. So we will go back. We'll go back to motion number 2, which is add the resolution under F1 first. That'll be the first vote, and then we'll do the second one. So the motion you're voting at is just to add the resolution as F1 into the board agenda. Okay. Mrs. Walsh.
Well, since I haven't had time to read this and we should have it 48 hours in advance, I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Mrs. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Mrs. Dauberberger.
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Aye.
I'm sorry, you said aye? Sorry. You said yes?
Yes.
Okay, you said yes. Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Motion passes.
All right, next motion is to remove F3,
Postpone, sir,
postpone F3
to
from the
April.
agenda.
To our April meeting, please, sir.
Postpone F3 to April.
And I was first, Ms. Gray was second.
Got it, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, vote, Ms. Walsh?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, yes. Don't have discussion.
Thank you for requesting that. I was going to do the same. I was curious how things get added to the agenda because the draft agenda from the 26th did not have that on. So I was just curious how it came back onto the agenda and who made the decision to add it back to the agenda. Because our draft agenda that I had from the 26th did not have it on there. So, Mike, I'm just curious how we come up with the agendas, and I thought maybe that would be nice to know how that would. Did you put it back on, or did the superintendent? One of you did, right?
Yeah, I put it back on.
Okay.
Have a motion on to postpone it. And then I know that you had requested a couple items on the agenda that I had added as well for
Oh, you
discussion.
did. I appreciate those being added.
You're welcome.
I just was curious about this specific one because that was like with everything going on with President Trump. Didn't seem like a good thing. Okay.
Any other
So-
discussion? On to roll call, please.
And this is to postpone F3 to April. Ms. Walsh?
Correct.
This is postponed
Postpone until April?
until April board meeting.
I think we should remove it permanently. I thought she said to take it off altogether.
I said postpone to April. You can make the motion to remove it if you like.
Let's vote on this one. Now, let's do it to postpone to April.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Dauberberger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, we have to vote on the actual agenda now.
Correct. Ms. Walsh? On the actual agenda.
There were a couple other items I asked to have added on and they were not. So that's another reason why I was wondering how you decide what goes on the agenda. If a board member wants something added to the agenda, like one was the treasurer's contract, it was not added. How do we go about, and I think board members need time to prepare, so adding it right now, I don't think is being good boardsmanship in my opinion. So how do you go about deciding what goes on the agenda and what kind of input and when can the board members have input on what goes on our agenda?
Yeah, very good question. And I do ask that we get agenda item requests ahead of time. And it's also based on how many items we have on the current agenda. I know that in the previous month you had requested both of the discussion topics, so I wanted to make sure that we got those on for this month.
I would just add to that. So last month I was here. We were all here till 1:35 in the morning. Okay, so at 1:35 I had to be at Mansfield at 9. So my choice was to discuss the treasurer's contract, which was packed in with his review in the same night, at 1:35 in the morning, or get home and get a few hours sleep before I go to work. So now it's not on the agenda. You can imagine how fair I think that is.
Again, I think that we all had an opportunity last month to discuss our opinions regarding that, and we're moving forward.
Again, our only opportunity was at 1:35 in the morning. So that is not an opportunity for me. There's no reason for a reasonable board to be going and doing business at 1:35 in the morning. And would you expect us to be really alert and ready to have a logical discussion at 1:35 in the morning when we start at 5 in the morning? I don't think it's fair. I concur. It's bad boardmanship and it's embarrassing for the district. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I would agree with you, John, and I really think we need to have this on the agenda at the next meeting. And I really think the board needs to look at discussing things, transparency. It's not happening when we do that. That's obvious. You're not fooling anybody when you do those kinds of things. You're not fooling anybody. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. On any other discussion?
Just that we've also discussed having more than one board meeting, and we have something thrown at us here that I'm supposed to read and understand at the last second. This would be an excellent opportunity for a special board meeting and not such long board meetings as would have last month. Do a review one time, as is our policy, by the way. Our policy is our administrators get reviewed in advance of their contract, not the same night of. So again, time management would make us a better board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. On to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh?
Aye.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Stoutoburger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirsch?
No.
All right. We have an agenda. Motion passes. On to public participation. There is none. Okay.
Okay, we have a couple recognitions tonight. We have National Women's History Month and Irish American Heritage Month. First, Women's History Month had its origins in the national celebration in 1981 when Congress passed Public Law 9728, which authorized and requested the President to proclaim the week beginning March 7th, 1982 as a Women's History Week. Throughout the next 5 years, Congress continued to pass joint resolutions designating this week in March as Women's History Week. In 1987, after being petitioned by the National Women's History Project, Congress passed Public Law 100-9, which designated the month of March 1987 as Women's History Month between 1988 and 1994. Congress passed additional resolutions requesting and authorizing the President to proclaim March of each year as Women's History Month. Since 1995, presidents have issued a series of annual proclamations designating the month of March as Women's History Month. These proclamations celebrate the contributions women have made to the United States and recognize the specific achievements women have made over the course of American history in a variety of fields. Next, we also have Irish American Heritage Month. First celebrated in 1991, it honors the contributions of Irish immigrants and their descendants into U.S. society. This month-long celebration recognizes the significant contributions made by Irish descended individuals in various fields, including steelworking, biotech, and literature. The tradition continues annually with the top Irish political figure, and I would need some help. Anybody pronounce this for me? Tausig? Conducting a shamrock giving ceremony at the Oval Office. The influx of Irish families to the United States during the 19th century often led to anti-immigration sentiment due to their Catholicism, which clashed with the predominantly Protestant backgrounds of the majority of families. Irish Americans faced competition and slanted legislation in their search for jobs and a home. This month recognizes the overcoming of these obstacles and the breadth and depth of their contributions to American society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to recognize our board vice president, Latoya Dowdleberger. This evening, we're proud to recognize and congratulate our board vice president, Latoya Dowdleberger, for being named recipient of the 2025 OSBA Training Award. This prestigious honor is part of the STAR Awards program, and the STAR is Service, Training, Aptitude, and Recognition, and is presented to a select group of school board members across Ohio. Latoya's dedication to ongoing professionalism and development of her commitment to public education exemplify the qualities of an outstanding board member. Out of more than 3,400 board members in Ohio, she is among just 41 recipients of this year's award, an incredible achievement. We thank Latoya for her steadfast leadership and service to Groveport Madison schools. Her passion for student success and continuous learning is an inspiration to us all. She will be officially recognized at the OSBA Central Region Spring Conference next week on March 19th at the Eastland Fairfield Career and Technical Schools in Groveport. Congratulations to Latoya on this well-deserved, well-earned recognition. We appreciate all you do for our students and staff. She will be getting a certificate at the OSBA Central Region meeting next week, so we don't have one for each tonight, but we can still do a picture if you like. Okay. Well, all right. Well, you sure? We'll get pictures next week at the Central Region recognition. So, thank you, Latoya. Okay. Um, all right. Next, this is fun and exciting. We have our Ohio Model United Nations presentation. Mr. Smathers, you want to introduce Mr. Mertz and our group?
Okay. Bueller.
That didn't you? It has to get recorded. Okay. Good evening, board. I'd like to welcome Mr. Ray Mertz. He's a social studies teacher at the Groveport Madison High School. He is working with several of our students throughout the year, and I think this is your fourth year or third? Fourth year. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but he works with our outstanding students who dedicate a lot of time in participating in the Ohio Model UN and the things that they do. They've even taken leadership roles. So I don't want to take any of his thunder, but please welcome Mr. Ray Mertz.
Hi guys, thanks for having me here today. I'm gonna try to make my little talk quick. Use the green to talk. Left and right, okay. Because I want to give a couple of our students a chance to say thank you for Model UN. But if you check out the photo, this year, Model UN, we had 22 students go to the United Nations competition, 16 girls and 6 boys. We had 6 teams. And in the last 2 years, we've had 6 total teams, 3 per year. And 5 out of the 6 have passed their resolutions, and that's a great accomplishment. This year, we had 3 teams, 1 Guyana, and this team made it to the top 30 in the state. They advanced to the main room, the big room on the second day. And when they went through and did their resolution, they decided to ask for United Nations peacekeepers to help with the border dispute in Venezuela between Venezuela and Guyana. And it goes a lot deeper than that. They looked into the history of it. They studied when the border was made, who was in on it. They looked up several International Court of Justice decisions about the same issue, and they took it to the UN with the strategy of you need to uphold your own International Court of Justice. They even looked into UN peacekeepers already in Colombia and looked at their cost and the feasibility for sending peacekeepers in. So it was a very thorough and great job. And we have 2 team members from the Guyana team here today. So great job to those students. They did a great job. Second, we had Senegal team, and that is them right there with me talking to them at the competition. They asked the United Nations to send a task force in to Senegal to study illegal mining on the Falemé River and end it. And they didn't just stop there. They looked into Senegal's policies and why they banned mining 3 years ago and what has changed since then. They studied what happens at a gold mine, the tailings, the chemicals, the byproducts, and also the side effect that this has on the Falemé River in Senegal and Mali. And when they wrote their resolution, it was an open and shut case. The room was very receptive to it, and they did a great job there also. Our third team was our Slovakia team, and we have 2 team members from there, including 2 of our speakers, Alexis and Kaylee. And they studied the United Nations Human Trafficking Task Force in Europe And they discovered that this task force was created several years ago before, not before the Syrian civil war, but before the giant migrant crisis is happening. And they concluded that there are more than 100 migrants in Europe today than there were when the task force was created. So they decided it was woefully underfunded, and they asked the United Nations to not only revamp their funding of the program, but to add in job training for some of these migrants and refugees so that they would not be susceptible to human traffickers. So, in summary, these kids do a great job. They work very hard. It's a lot of studying and sharing information, and really they take the reins. This isn't the kind of class you would see in AP where I'm at the front and I'm leading discussion. This is the students leading. And I believe this is a great tool to prepare them for the boardroom someday, to prepare them for being an executive, to prepare them for presentations in marketing in the business field. So we thank you for the funding and keep it up, because next year there's a lot of very high-end, high-level students that are going to be competing to be part of this. And if you don't mind, 3 of my students would like to come up and say thank you before we conclude. So one more picture. And this is a couple action shots. I think this is the last one, so we can leave it up. So Asada, Najma, Alexis, if you'd like to come up, you can now. Come on up. This is 3 rock star students. So if you'd like to say thank you, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexis Blackburn. Model United Nations is something that has helped me in numerous ways. 3 years ago as a freshman, she would have thought I was crazy for standing up here and talking to you guys. I struggled with lack of motivation, but this class and the feeling of academic competition, it kept me thriving. It gave me confidence to speak up about things that many people can't, and it made me and it made us feel like we had a voice. One experience that truly made me fall in love with Model UN was walking up in front of a room with about 100 people and speaking, knowing I was being heard and not judged or criticized. It helped me build character, and it made me feel like I actually belonged amongst my peers. The investment into this program has not only helped me, but the people who came before me and the people who will come along afterwards. I truly think this can be such a beneficial class in the long run. I truly think this can be such a beneficial class in the long run to so many students finding a voice and finding a sense of belonging. Thank you.
Members of the school, thank you for your time today. My name is Najma Omar, and I am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Model UN has been hands down one of the most transformative experiences of my high school career. As it's one of the few academic competitions available to us, it has challenged me intellectually, strengthened my ability to think critically under pressure, and given me the confidence to articulate my thoughts with clarity and conviction. But beyond public speaking and the academic sense, Model UN has given me something even more valuable, a sense of community. The late nights spent fixing resolutions, the debates that turned into inside jokes, and the shared triumphs and setbacks that brought me closer to my peers in a way I could have never imagined. This program fosters not just strong students, but strong friendships, and that's something no textbook can teach. Most importantly, Model UN has given me the confidence to lead, whether it's stepping to a boardroom like this one day or taking charge in future opportunities. I now believe in my ability to advocate for what matters and make meaningful change. Your investment in programs like this extends far beyond the classroom. You are shaping confident, capable, and strong-minded students who will carry these skills into their futures. On behalf of myself and my peers, thank you for your continued support.
Hello, my name is Asada Dia, and how Model United Nations has definitely opened my eyes on different countries around the world that I may not have known before, and with all the different situations that they encounter. How Model United Nations has allowed me to be more confident to speaking in front of a room filled with people as for this one. To see countless other schools and different leaders to be passionate about the work in Model UN has really inspired me to love and to work hard to not give up on my dreams. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time. I'd like to just say one thing before I go, and that we also have Dakota, Katani, and Kaylee who just came here to support, to voice their thanks. So thank you guys for coming and showing your support. Thank you guys.
Mr. Mertz, can we have you and all the students take a picture with the Board of Education?
Yeah, sure. You want to do it now?
Yep, up front.
Come on up, guys.
Before Mr. Mertz sat down, I wanted to thank you. That was awesome, but also make you aware. Are you familiar with Boys State and Girls State? The American Legion, Boys State and Girls State. It's okay. Well, Boys State and Girls State brings. We provide scholarships, and it's a leadership training. And if you're, for instance, elected to be the governor, then actually the governor of the state comes in and sits with you and shows you how things run. They create two parties. They create the entire government. The justices come in, the roads and all these people come in and train the kids how a city runs. So that's one thing. And then also the Rotary has a Rotary Youth Scholarship, which is about leadership, very similar. And if you have any students that are interested in peace initiatives as a degree, the Rotary will pay for that. So if you have any interest in any of those things, please let me know. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, on to F, board items. We have item number 1, which is to approve the resolution regarding funding of public education.
Oh, okay.
So I'll read it, and I just tried to put candy in my mouth, so let me take that out so I can read this. I apologize. Unless there's any other questions before I begin to read. I did reach out to a couple just of colleagues to see, because it's not on the Ohio House Finance website as far as the date of the vote, but the testimonies are listed and the time for discussion. So if there's anyone that wants to go, you do have to submit a request early in. I think it's 24 to 48 hours. You can go to the website. So if you would like to speak. But the resolution reads as follows. Groveport Madison Local Schools Board of Education resolution regarding funding of public education. Whereas the Ohio Constitution requires the General Assembly to provide enough funding to secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state, and whereas a group of school superintendents and treasurers, led by State Representatives Robert Cupp and John Patterson, developed the Fair School Funding Plan that included a number of recommendations to meet the constitutional mandate, and whereas the 134th Ohio General Assembly passed into law a six-year phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan and appropriated funding, which amounted to 1/3 of the cost of full implementation of the plan, and the 135th Ohio General Assembly passed into law a budget that continued the phase-in for 4 years, 3 and 4 of the 6-year phase-in. And whereas Governor DeWine proposed a biannual budget introduced as House Bill 96 that continues to phase in the funding of the Fair School Funding Plan. And we are very grateful for the governor's leadership on continuing the full phase in of the Fair School Funding Plan. However, the governor's proposal uses FY 2022 data inputs to determine base cost funding. The state share of the base cost decreases from 87% of the state's more than 600 public school districts in the first year, and for 83.1% of school districts in the second year. And whereas the proposed budget also reduces in both years of the biennium the amounts be provided to districts on the guarantee, including Groveport Madison local schools, proposing to reduce amounts available to these districts to 95% in the first year and 90% in the second year. This reduction is based on what has been termed as an empty desk concept not applicable to Groveport Madison schools, where student enrollments are not declining and will force our community into having to consider an even greater local tax burden in order to make up for the proposed decline in state funding. And whereas Ohio's nonpartisan Legislative Service Commission, the office that reviews legislation for lawmakers, shows traditional public schools will receive 16 billion, which represents a cut from current spending adding up to 103.4 million over 2 years. With more than half of districts getting less state funding, with a fifth of the schools receiving less state funding that actually grew their student populations in the last year. And whereas the revenue lost to the Groveport Madison schools in fiscal year 2027 is projected by the legislative, and that's the LSE Legislative Service Commission, to be 880,000. And whereas the proposed biennium budget also recommends a further increased amount for the now universally available Ed Choice voucher program, the budget proposes 2.4 billion for all voucher programs, which is 265.4 million more over the 2 years and 16.5% increase over current funding. Charter STEM schools will receive 2.7 billion or 221.8 million more, which is an 11.7 increase over current funding. Whereas vouchers are available to all families and students, including those who have never attended Groveport Madison schools or any other public school, and for whom state funding has never been provided to the Groveport Madison School District or any other public school. And whereas private schools accepting students with public tax vouchers are not required to accept all students, but permitted to retain their selective admission policies without enforcement and other laws applicable to public schools. And whereas Ohio taxpayers and local communities are required to subsidize choice for those families who choose to never enroll their students in Ohio's quality public schools. Now, therefore, it be resolved, the Groveport Madison School Boards of Education, that this board reaffirms its commitment to free, accessible public schools, which are adequately and equitably funded to guarantee a comparable education for all children, and it be further resolved that this board requests that the Ohio General Assembly and the Governor of Ohio commit to fully funding the Fair School Funding Plan as it was initially recommended, including use of current inputs and including maintaining the guarantee throughout the full phase in of the Fair School Funding Plan, and it be further resolved, while this board does not oppose choice in education, this board opposes expansion of Ed Choice voucher program and funding for that program, as well as any funding program vouchers, educational saving accounts, or other plans that have the effect of diverting public tax dollars from public schools to private schools and increases the local tax burden. And it be further resolved that the treasurer is authorized to deliver or cause to be delivered a certified copy of this resolution to the members of the Ohio House of Representatives and the Ohio State Senate, and those individuals are listed on this resolution. So I did ask the treasurer to break down I just had questions. If you guys read the emails from OSBA, there was so much information that was coming out about this and the testimony and the opportunities they were asking for board members to go speak at testimony, and how this will be an additional tax burden on the district. And I also asked Adam, knowing about IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act, Part B, which is the actual funding piece, has not been fully funded since its enactment. So if I can pull those numbers, or if you have them up, Adam, I had asked him to look at that. There was a significant decrease, which is actually in the letter that I had put together. We received a quite bit, like 10% cut in that funding. So when we don't get that money, from even IDEA, and now you have the Fair School Funding Plan also taking money. That money then comes out of the general fund.
Right. And to give details on that, the idea, just the IDB grant alone, from fiscal year 24, we got 2.04 million. It went down this year to 1.859 million. So our IDB was cut 189,000, like 614, even though we're increasing kids. But it was cut that much. And the amount right now in the Fair School funding formula is next year we're going to go up 400, but then the next year for that FY27 we're going to lose 880,000.
Yep.
So when you first look at it, what they're telling us is you survive on less money than you're getting this year, 2 years from now. So all the treasurers are concerned about that.
And then when I was looking at our demographic, I don't know, I didn't look at past years, but at least this year, we are currently at 19% of our students, at least with the state report card, as of, I don't know what enrollment is, but what the state report card shows for our students with disabilities is 19%. So to lose 10% funding in a year, that's a lot. And then the Fair School Funding Plan possibly coming to CHOP additional, that's a lot. So that's why I proposed it to you, wasn't to try to slight anyone. I just wanted to, I thought we were all kind of reading the same thing and thought we could come together and say something to ensure that we're funded appropriately. Again, no one's against school choice, but we just want to make sure that our school district is funded appropriately when we can speak up and do so. Thank you.
Real quick before we move on, continue with discussion. We should probably do a motion. So I will so move to make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, now on to discussion. Sorry.
So is there any additional? I just wanted to make sure we read the resolution, or if there's any other comments. And I've heard your thoughts, Ms. Walsh, and definitely understand, but thought it was very important to bring. But I understand your statements.
Yeah, I know that we've been getting, I think, probably at least one email a day.
That's correct.
From different, either the OSBA or the High Department of Education or wherever, all the different organizations making us aware of what is going on. And I thank you for bringing this forward.
Yeah, and I also want to say I've been able to listen to some of the testimony that's come out, and it's pretty powerful how impactful this is going to be to public education. So thank you for bringing this as well.
Yeah, and I also did some additional research. I think from what I've seen, the Ohio Education Association has been sharing information with educators. There's been things with BASA and OASBO, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not, okay.
Excuse me, Adam, could you restate where it says, whereas the revenue lost to Groveport Madison schools in the fiscal year 2027 is projected by the LSC
800
to be 880?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
I agree with that. That is true. So so over the next 2 years, so in fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26, we're going to go up 400, but then the following year they have the reduction of 880,000.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So
could you restate?
Yeah, we go up 1 year of 400,000, but then in FY 27 right now, on their estimate is we go down $880,000.
Okay, so I'm going to read and honestly flying by the seat of my pants here. So I would move that this becomes a first read because it's a big read, but here is a maybe possibly a counterpoint. The base cost model and escalated costs. When the Cup-Patterson plan was first unveiled, the projected cost of full implementation was $2 billion, in addition to state spending, a roughly 20% increase above the state K-12 education expenditures at the time. Given the price tag, lawmakers chose to phase in the increase over 6 years. Thus, public schools have reached increased funding over the past 4 years, though they're not quite up to the full amounts prescribed by the formula. Even with the phase-in, spending has ramped up quickly under the new formula relative to a pre-Cup-Patterson baseline of $8.5 billion in fiscal year 21. Ohio has increased formula funding by $1.5 billion by fiscal year 25. All three sectors of the public school system have enjoyed higher funding amounts, with traditional districts funded up to $1.1 billion, public charter and STEM schools up to $212 billion, and joint vocational schools up by $180 million. I could continue to read. I just think it's very unfair that I have to sit here and Google this in the middle of a meeting. And I move that we make this the first read. And if we have some pressing time frame, give me another date and we'll have a special meeting when we can actually be prepared and not blindsided. Thank you.
And I would agree 100%. I have not had time to research, to check these numbers, to see, to read this. And you say we get daily emails. I'm not getting them. So I don't know. I don't. And here's my email thing. You can look at it right now. So you send me all the daily emails you're getting. I would appreciate that because I'm not getting them. And we should have 48 hours at minimum to prepare to put something like this out and say, just go vote on it. And here's what we have. Well, I'm glad you were able to research it, but I'm
I
supposed to
also
be
can't
afforded
find,
the same
I'm sorry.
opportunity to do so.
I'm sorry. I also can't find any reference to resolution number March 11, 2025.
Okay, so we have a motion to postpone by Mr. Kirschner. Do I have a second?
What is motion? I would second.
My motion was to make this a first read.
A first read?
Yes, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Kathy, a second.
And yeah, and before we vote on that, I would say it's important that we have a first read and a second read so that all board members have an opportunity to review the data that's sitting before them.
As stated, it was no intention to try to hurt anybody as is being displayed by my colleagues. I saw an opportunity with the testimony and the current media piece to have Groveport also stand up and share and get this to the House. So I do understand your concerns. Again, the intention was not to try not to go against giving you something within 48 hours. It's just the time frame when I caught that the testimony ends on the 13th. We have a board meeting on the 11th. I thought I would propose and assume that we were kind of tracking. I understand that, but there's no reason to assume like I'm intentionally trying to hurt you because that's not the case. I'm trying to protect our students in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Latoya.
Okay. On to roll call, please.
So this is a motion to make this a first read?
Correct.
John first, Kathy second.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Mrs. Dahlberger
No.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Okay, motion fails. On to the original motion to approve the resolution.
That was first by second, or first by Seth, second by Libby. Mrs. Walsh.
No.
Okay. Right. You said no. This is to do the motion. Yeah.
I thought you said I was the second.
Oh yeah. No, sorry.
No.
Okay. Mrs. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Dahlberger.
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
No.
All right, motion passes.
For the record, we just approved resolution number March 11, 2025.
And that will be addressed, Mr. Kirshner. Thank you for pointing that out.
On to item F2, discussion of recordings of Board of Education meetings retention schedule. Mrs. Walsh, if you'd like to lead that.
Yes, thank you. One moment, please. Going to make a motion that the Groveport Madison
Is your mic on, please?
Sorry. I recommend that the Groveport Madison School Board of Education approve this motion to modify record retention schedule RC2 Part 1, schedule number 102, retention period from 2 years to permanent. This is the retention schedule of our meeting minutes, the recording of our meeting minutes. And we have been told that, you know, we can always look back at the meeting minute recordings. So we need to change that from 2 years to permanent if that is our intent to be able to look back on them.
Was that
Do
the
I
motion?
second?
If that was the motion, I second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mrs. Walsh, seconded by Mr. Kirschner. On to discussion, please.
I think this is consistent with some of the feedback we've received from at least one board attorney. And we've made statements in the past that the recordings help us overcome some possible shortcomings of meeting minutes or capturing the intent behind our votes. So I think it would be great, and I don't think it would be overly burdensome with the limited number of meetings we have as far as bandwidth, etc.
Could I ask what policy that is? I thought you said
Here.
RC2.
I'm gonna send this.
I'm trying to find it in our board policy. I don't see an R. It goes all the way to F. Or no.
Do you want to send those down?
The board
she's got
policy.
Share motion thing.
I don't, it goes to section L, so I don't know where R is.
I don't know where R is either. This is our retention schedule for our policy committee. This, I can look up need to look up the policy that has our retention schedule. It doesn't have all these documents in it. These are
Schedule part 1 section.
could you help me out with that?
To give a little insight, what she's asking for, we'll have to do another RC2 and go get approval from the Ohio Historical Commission. This is not something that we can do. We can ask, but what she's asking is to make the one from 2 years on the DVDs and audios to permanent. But I'll have to take that back, and then we'll have to do another RC2 and go get Ohio Historical Society's approval on it. So that's what she's asking. So I don't think there is a board policy. No, there's not board policy RC2. And RC2
I
is
could not
actually
find it anywhere.
then RC2 is actually the form, but we'd have to fill that form out because right now we just use whatever the Ohio Historical says is the standard kind of stuff for board meetings for all the records retention schedule. So this would be an exception to that. So we'd have to go ask them to bump it up from 2 years to permanent for, I think it's DVDs and audio recordings of board meetings.
And so this is this something that this recommended, just so I understand, because I didn't get this either until now. So with that, we would vote on the resolution. If passes, then that gives you the
And that
authority
gives me
to go
authority
to the,
to ask
okay,
them
because I
to
wasn't,
do it.
okay,
Right. That gives me the authority to ask them to approve it. And that takes a while. It doesn't happen right away. But and then like we had a records commission meeting before this meeting, and we'd have another one of those. Once they approved it, then we'd have to have another records commission meeting to approve it for us.
Do you happen to know what other districts are doing as well,
I think-
or
I
other
don't know.
government bodies?
Like I said,
or
no, I don't, because we just do the standard, like kind of whatever they say to use, or we use. We don't.
and you mentioned a board attorney, John. When was the council piece? I want to see if it'll jog my memory on the discussion. Was that something here where that conversation happened?
I don't remember the place precisely, but I remember Adam Miller mentioning that there seemed to be a recognition that we needed a greater retention of our recordings, since we seem to be relying on them for greater details. I do not recall if that was in executive session or at a conference, but that was fairly recent. If we were to, Adam, make this subject to approval by the you say historical
I think it's
commission?
Ohio Historical Commission or
Yeah.
Society.
Would
I don't know what their name is.
would that make this? That would make this motion logical.
Yes, I mean I get approval for you guys first, then I go for them for approval, and then we'd have another records committee meeting to make it.
Is there any supporting documents for your motion, Ms. Walsh?
Any supporting documents for your emotion as well? I'm not sure what you're.
For the motions, he said.
Oh, any supporting
That's
documents.
okay.
Well,
Thank you. Don't worry about it. Thank you.
the motion has a retention schedule. I assume all of us know what it is. I would also say that during board meetings, board member Delberger, you have actually said when we talk about, meeting minutes, that we have recordings. So a discussion not all has to be all the way in there because we have the recording. So this kind of just goes with that. If we're going to be saying to the public, they can look back at recordings when we don't always have the rationale of the vote memorialized in our meeting minutes, then we would have to have those permanently.
Yeah, I just would need more time to understand the process and then read up on the other piece that you're speaking of, Adam, with the.
I'm not sure I'm following what you're saying because I'm read up on stuff.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
You can
Just,
state.
I have a question. So would this just, so right now, currently our recordings are on YouTube. Would that just be permanent, or how would this work? Nate, do you mind explaining that?
The recordings are currently held on YouTube and will stay there, but there are also, what is on YouTube is a copy of a recording that stays in our Google Cloud currently. So we have all of the recordings would then be staying in our Google Cloud, taking cloud-based storage from us in the Google Cloud that we do have limited resources on.
You said we have limited or unlimited?
We do have limited. Resources,
Okay.
yeah.
So what additional burden is this on the district? Is there any additional other than
it doesn't change. This wouldn't change what we're doing now, but at some point, I think it will cause an issue with having enough storage to store indefinitely. We do have a limited amount of storage that we can hold with our Google EDU license. And then at some point, if we're holding indefinitely, we're going to get to where we've got 5-year-old meetings that we're keeping, and that's going to cost us.
Mr. Sohm, from a different conversation, we were talking about the video recordings that we have of some other meetings not related to the Board of Education, and those are becoming voluminous. I know right now our video quality is pretty low using the Chromebook. If we upgrade the camera system that we've been talking off and on about for several months to 4K or 8K or something like that, does that change the volume of data?
That's going to drastically increase the size of the video recordings that we currently have. Currently, our recordings average about 3 gigabytes. I think we're going to at least double that, if not more, when we increase video footage and audio quality in this room.
And they're taking 3 gigabytes. That's quite surprising. At what resolution now?
I'm not sure what the resolution on this camera is. I did not look that up. I wasn't prepared for that question.
Okay. So I would say that we can go to 4K, 8K, 16K, 39K, 150K, whatever's next, but there's no reason to record and store at that resolution. There's probably no reason to store above 720p. I don't think anybody's going to want a real high resolution shot of me talking up here or anybody else. I think it's more, it could honestly, if it became a storage issue, it could be an audio recording, to be honest. I think the biggest thing is we have discrepancies that we catch between votes and between other things, and I think we need a way of better storing our history. So if eliminating video is the first step, and we just retain the audio portion, that would certainly never, MP3 in our world would never have any impact on your storage. So for this, I would amend and recommend that the Groveport Madison School Board of Education approve the motion to modify records retentions in an MP3 format from 2 years to permanent, subject to approval by the Ohio Historical Society. Is that correct term? Okay, thank you.
So
I
as
second
far,
the motion.
so as far as administratively, that's what I'm asking, is administratively, is there additional work that's,
Once I get through the Ohio Historical Society and stuff, that's all mine. I mean, I just have to submit to them, so it's no.
okay, no different there? Gotcha.
Who second John's, the motion? If you could repeat that as well, miss. I just want to make sure I got that wrote down. Who seconded that motion?
All right, so I had, for the original motion, Mrs. Walsh made the motion, Mr.
Mhm.
Kirschner seconded it.
But then he
And
just
then,
made another.
yeah, we've
Okay.
got a motion to amend, that was motioned by Mr. Kirschner so far.
Did you need me to read that again, Latoya?
Please.
Okay. I recommend that the Groveport Madison School Board of Education approve this motion to modify the records retention schedule to incorporate MP3 audio files from a 2-year schedule to a permanent schedule, subject to approval by the Ohio Historical Society.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Yes.
I just have one more question. Okay, so where I work, we have our retention schedules and we have to take things off site and it costs for storage. Is that, do we have to pay the highest historical for storage? Okay, all right, but it will cost us on the cloud.
If we get to a point where we're using all of our cloud storage, yes, but as Mr. Kirshner mentioned, that's not likely to happen because of MP3 files.
Okay.
Audio only files, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a difference between a few hours of music versus, like they're saying, 4K video. It's a very small file. It's probably kilobytes or yeah, megabytes. Yeah.
Any impact with you and your staff if we did the MP3 files? Is that pretty easy to do?
We would have to convert or add a recording device to get the MP3 file. We'd have to come up with a process maybe where, you know, once it's 2 years old, we pull the recording out with a program I'm not aware of yet. I'd have to research and then convert it to MP3.
It would probably be easier just to record it MP3 in the meeting. That'd
So
be
then
super.
we would add,
That'd be super simple.
yeah, add a device to record an MP3
Yeah.
along with video.
Or you can strip the audio
Strip
from
the audio
yeah.
out.
Right.
We'd have to come up with some process to convert or pull the audio out
Once
after
the
the 2 year
process,
mark.
okay, but once the process is set, it should be
It could
pretty
just sit there,
easy
yeah.
to do. Okay, sounds good. Any other discussion? So we have, we need to do the original motion first.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm sorry.
The amended
Yep,
motion
the amended
first.
first. Yep.
And so this is the amended motion to make it just MP3 audio. John first, Seth second. All right.
Yep.
Ms. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Duttleberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirsten.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now on to the original motion.
Yes, and this is the motion to make records permanent. So this was Kathy first, John second. Correct. All right. So Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Duttleberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirsten.
Motion passes.
And just a point of clarification, that we're requesting for the, how, that we don't have the authority.
Yeah, we don't have
to
the
do that.
authority. We're requesting the Ohio
We're
Star site to
requesting
make the MP3 permanent audio file. Correct.
Do you know how long something like that takes, Mr. Treasurer?
Just out of curiosity, do they typically approve these things? Do they? Okay.
Okay, on to item F3, discussion of open checkbook. Mrs. Walsh, if you'd like to lead this discussion as well.
Yes, I've had some community members come and I think it's a good idea. So to have the open checkbooks, I'm sure that since it's on here, everybody's had an opportunity to do any of the board members not know what the open checkbook is?
I know of it, but I don't have any details.
So there's different levels that you can do on it, but there are several. Hilliard does it. I think Reynoldsburg does. There's other school districts that do have the
There's
open checkbook.
there's currently no Franklin County school districts that currently use the open checkbook, and not even Franklin County. Because once I looked this, no school districts use open checkbook, and Franklin County doesn't use open checkbook. Some schools have used it in the past. I talked to their treasurers, and they definitely got out of it because it was not good. But so it popped up in 2018. Grandview Heights used it in 18 or 19 only. Hilliard used it from 18 to 22. Then they stopped using it. Pickerington only 22. Reynoldsburg used it 2018 to 22, and then Worthington in 18 and 19 only. All the other 11 school districts in Franklin County have never used it. Like I said, Franklin County doesn't even use it. And so again, I talked to the treasurers, and it is way too hard on the treasurer's office and confusing for them. It just created more problems and stuff. So that's why currently in 2025, no Franklin County school district uses it. And I looked at other school districts too, and they don't use it either.
Okay.
So Hilliard's listed on their website.
It is, and it was, like I said, Hilliard used it from 2018 to 22, but there's no data for 23 and 24. So nobody uses it because it just got too, the treasurer said, which is really bad. I think it was good. I think it was maybe a good idea in 18 when it came out, but it just became too cumbersome and just bad for the. That's why no Franklin County schools use it.
All right. I was told that all these districts used it when I looked it up. It had them on there.
Yeah, if you look at if you look at each one of them, you'll see where their data stopped. Hilliard stopped in 22. And so I called and asked if
okay, well, I'm going to withdraw the motion and research it some more. How about that?
All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
I just did research when I saw it, so I was like, all right.
Did I understand you withdrew the motion?
Yes.
There was, yeah.
Well, we was just in
Oh,
discussion.
okay.
Yeah, it was a discussion.
We're good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, do some more. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay, on to item F4, boardmanship training update. And I've got an update here. Let me pull it up. So I've been working with Mrs. Robbins with OSBA, and it looks like we can do a 2.5 hour to 3 hour boardmanship training. That's what they typically would provide for a board. Their summer rate, looking into summer, is $900 for the training. And then she does have some dates available. So she has some Tuesdays, June 3rd, June 10th, and June 17th. And then 2 Saturdays if we want to try and do a Saturday training, June 7th or June 21st. Again, it's typically a 2.5 hour to 3 hour training, is what she said. So does anyone have anything to add, or would those dates, any of those dates work?
Yeah, the first weeks of June are my vacation. The 17th would work.
Okay. So Tuesday, June 17th
would be best for me.
Let me pull up my calendar here. Yeah.
For the record, that's also my wife's birthday week, so I'd get hurt. Don't get me hurt.
I'm not going to be able to do Saturdays in June or July or August. We had some Tuesdays. Here. Tuesdays. I'll check Tuesdays.
Mr. President, may I ask a question? If we did a Tuesday, would that be in lieu of the board meeting? I know a lot of us have made changes to accommodate the schedule for Tuesdays for board meetings. So would this be an addition? To, okay, because I also have class too, so thanks.
Yes, Tuesdays are fine.
June 10th would be our board meeting, and Mr. Kirshner said that June 17th out of those Tuesdays would work with him. Would another day work? And I can reach back out to Mrs. Robbins to see if she could do another day during the week. I asked for Tuesday just because I know that's our new board meeting date. I know it is difficult though. What about Wednesday? Would a Wednesday work?
I can do Tuesdays, but I have classes on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And the first Tuesday of June, I will be in the New England area. So I won't be able to do that. That's the third.
So the 17th, no one's, is everybody available the 17th? Or Latoya, did you say you can't?
So technically, I have class on Tuesdays. I'm missing class now, part of the day. That's why I was here early because we switched. So that's why I'm saying I'm making sure I'm here for this second Tuesday, but adding another Tuesday and is pushing it for me.
So we've got no Tuesdays, no Wednesdays, no Thursdays,
And no Saturdays?
and no Saturdays. So that would leave Mondays.
It looks like in June, my Mondays, I don't have anything on there yet. So
Would
But
Monday
you
work?
gotta check with them, right?
Yeah, I would. So I've got Tuesdays and Saturdays for June out here that she's available. But if we want to do another day, I can reach back out and then hopefully have something by the next board meeting. If a Monday, or I mean, we could do a Friday training as well.
So what I was for me, Mr. President, if you could just figure out what majority of the board, if the Mondays work, I'll try to move things around. But with work schedule as well, I'm a federal employee, so there's that
Yep,
too. So I just want to be
understood.
mindful, but I don't want to hold up the training being scheduled because of my schedule.
All right. So how's everyone's Monday?
Fine.
Mondays?
I am, just so you know, the first 2 weeks in May.
May.
I'm out.
So if we look at Mondays in June, would it be okay if I reach back out to see if she would be available on a Monday evening? Okay, so Monday the 9th, 16th, and 23rd. Kathy, would that work?
Monday the 9th, 16th, and 23rd, all three?
Just checking those dates.
Just checking those dates.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, so I will reach back out and then hopefully have an update for us in April. I will look at the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, with the 16th and 23rd as our number one and number two options, and then the 9th as our third option. Fair enough. All right. On to item G1 of the superintendent's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our department reports, I guess I'm going to ask Terry from CBS to come up and give his update first.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My report stands as submitted. Couple items to add. We continue to attract and retain drivers. We're doing very well with that. While we aggressively implement attendance and tardiness, because a late driver showing up for a late route is a late bus and it's very unsafe. It's very difficult because we get a lot of call-offs, but it has worked. This whole deal has worked. We're fully staffed. We're fully staffed plus 20%. And that's because of the teamwork of everybody on the board, everybody at the department. It's going great, very, very well. We added a new mechanic to assure coverage. So we now have 5 mechanics, and our mechanics work till 10:30 at night. The annual safety and training calendar, you may recall I presented it a few months ago. It's a weekly calendar of safety and training activities that are aggressively implemented by the onboard instructors. It exceeds the governor's, you guys recall the governor's report on school bus safety. It exceeds the governor's recommendations, of course, no seatbelts. So you're doing very well on the safety department. Love the bus event, very well attended. Thank you, Mr. Smathers. I had to miss that event because it was originally scheduled for Friday. It got moved to Thursday because of a funeral inside the department, and my schedule uh, didn't allow for it. The 3,000 Valentines went out K through 5 and went to the drivers, and they were very well received. And thank you, Ty. The social media post, you know, the Love the Bus event is designed to engage the community, the drivers, everyone, that you have to value the bus or you lose the bus. It's a national program. The next event is a statewide event. It's the Ohio School Bus Driver Appreciation Day coming up May 8th. I'm sorry, May 5th, and we'll be doing some things for that as well. And last, the Ohio Association of Pupil Transportation is having the first ever school bus driver summit on June 9th. We'll be out of school. It's a $25 fee for each driver. We'll be asking as many drivers from Groveport here if they want to go. It's an all-day event. They connect with peers across the state. They learn new skills, stay updated on the best practices. It's held at the Nationwide Conference Center. That completes my report. Any questions? Thank- Well, we have 65 routes, and we need 18 attendants besides the 65 drivers. And we have enough drivers in attendance so that when we get some days more than 10 or 12 call-offs, that we cover it. You hire them, and you guarantee them 6 hours a day, and they show up because there's a given number, and it's a pretty consistent number of people that call off every day. The real problem is the tardiness, and we're very aggressive at our capture of the time, what happens at the time clock, because you just can't show up late, and I don't have to tell you guys why. I mean, it's unsafe for a school bus driver. What happens? They'll skip the pre-trip, or bad things happen when you show up late for a school bus route. So this, in the last 3 years, considering it's a pretty much a new workforce, you have a very stable, well-managed workforce. So, well, there's people there. Yeah, and the answer to that question is yes. Yes. Well, you don't have seatbelts on school buses, and you don't want me to start that debate because the last 40 years, every elevator I get on, oh, you're in the school bus business. Why aren't there seatbelts on school buses? And I could speak here all night on why there shouldn't be. 11 states have them. Huge. Inside the industry, there's 11 states that require it. I mean, what happens is very active people get involved and they want seatbelts on school buses. Before you know it, they pass a law, and you have a bunch of seatbelts that kids pretty much don't use. Anybody else? Thank you so much.
Terry, I want to thank you for your help with the boys basketball team, our cheerleaders, and our spirit bus with some of your donations. It was really appreciated. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm not going to read to you. Business update, I will point to, I would think next month, we will probably have a presentation talking about plans to move forward with a part of the 4,500 over the Cruiser Excel building, as well as a little cruiser preschool. A second highlight from business, as you know, we've talked about playgrounds here. We have already added cameras. We have replacement schedules and budgeting going on for equipment. And Dave has been out to every building to meet with principals, looking at different fencing options to try to save money in fencing, but to accomplish our goals of making sure we're keeping our equipment protected outside of school hours. Human capital, again, you can read that. I will just touch base that the frontline implementation is to fully streamline our from application through onboarding, and we're transitioning into that. And then this is recruiting season for us. Mark and several administrators, he's been coordinating trips to a lot of different schools. He has some schools listed that we've been to, and have several more scheduled to do that. So unless you have any questions, I'll just let you take a look at the reports I submitted.
Are you able to give me a little heads up? I understand the 4,500 cruiser building. We did not get the grant. Correct?
We did well. That's complicated. We believe we did not get the grant.
That's what we believe at the moment. In the portal it says.
Sorry.
The short answer is we have not been awarded the grant, and Michael's explained why it's not a yes/no answer.
Oh, okay.
It's not a yes/no answer right now because within our portal, our grant portal, it says still in review. And while it's been in review, we've also been concerned that the current presidential administration has held up these types of grants. We don't have a clear answer right now.
Held up these types of grants. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate that. So you might be presenting some type of alternate.
I think we will be presenting a plan to move forward with a partial development of that building that can both serve our students and might also be a revenue generator for us. But Dave, would you think it's fair that we'll be able to talk about the plan next week or next month?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Groveport Madison High School Program of Studies, second read. The superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School 2025-2026 Program of Studies.
So moved.
Second.
I have Mrs. Gray as first and Mrs. Dowdellberger as second. On to the discussion.
So we really didn't have a presentation planned. There were a few changes that have been marked and highlighted in there. If I remember correctly, I don't think there was any changes recommended from board members. Back to Carol. Oh, okay. Was there one?
Sorry about that. I didn't have anything emailed for any changes, but afterwards, John and I spoke about there's one sentence about, I believe it's jazz band, and about adding some other instruments. And so I reached out to the band director and we added a statement. Other instruments will be considered with discussion with the band director. So that was the only change from board members that I received.
I just wanted to say that was so easy to read.
Good.
Compared to the past.
Thank you.
The only part that got difficult was when it was stuff that was inserted from the state. Then it was like, okay,
Yes.
got to really concentrate here. But that made it, the presentation of it, it made it so
Great.
much easier.
I tried to make it very user friendly for students and families. So thank you.
You did a good job.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? If not, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh.
Aye.
Mrs. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Dellberger.
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Collier, the next two are you.
Treasurer recommends the Groveport Madison Local Board of Education approve the minutes of the Parent Advisory Committee meeting that was held on January 27th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
I have Mrs. Gray as first and Mrs. Dowdellberger as second. On the discussion.
Yeah. So as I understand it, I think this is a minor clarification. These aren't our minutes. So I believe that typically we should be moving to accept them. Since the majority of us aren't in the room, we move to accept and they're as presented because the people making the minutes in the committee are responsible for their own records.
So instead of approve the minutes, it's just to motion to accept.
Motion to accept, yeah. That's why I keep abstaining because if I'm not there, I don't know how I can approve.
So I just changed it here on the fly to accept the minutes instead of approve.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
Do we need to formalize that or is it done?
I changed it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Kirschner?
Aye.
Mrs. Delderberger?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
And Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next motion, the treasurer recommends Groveport Madison Local Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular board meeting on February 11th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gray as first and Mrs. Dowdleberger as second. On to discussion.
My concern is that there are no attachments. So how are the attachments that we're reviewing, such as the first reads? We used to have them attached to the board minutes, and I don't see them attached when I get online.
Are you talking about the meeting minutes?
Yes.
You go to the board meeting.
You go to the board meeting on
the
board
board
docs.
docs.
But the meeting minutes aren't attached, right? To the minutes.
Yeah, they're on here.
They're on there.
Yeah, they're on.
It read that you just said the meeting minutes aren't attached to the meeting minutes.
That's what she said. That's why I'm confused.
You meant the associated support documents aren't attached to the meeting minutes? Is that
So
correct?
when I go to the meeting minutes, I don't see the attachments there. So is it maybe my computer?
Well, no, the meeting minutes are just the PDF version of the minutes, right? I haven't changed that since I've been here, right? But you have the board meeting to go back to pull up the attachments and everything.
So here's the meeting minutes right here. There's no attachments.
Correct. Right. And they've always been like that. Those are just a
No.
PDF version of the meeting minutes. Like you mean when I email you the meeting minutes?
Typically, they have them on there. If I go to board docs, you're saying that on board docs they are?
Well, the board docs is their whole meetings on there. I mean,
Yeah, it has all the attachments.
like when I send you the
for
minute
that
meetings, it's
meeting.
just the PDF version of the the meeting minutes. I've never like sent attachments with it when I send it to you.
So there's the minutes on board docs and there's no attachments on it.
No, you
No,
go
there's
to
not.
that meeting.
You have to go to that meeting then, right?
You go to the meeting that the minutes are for.
Right. And that's
it
the board
has
docs
all
thing.
the
The board docs doesn't let us. Yeah, like we just edit the minutes and then go there, right?
Could you restate that, please?
I said that the board docs when we go to do minutes, it doesn't even allow for like if I remember right, it doesn't allow for attachments because I never attached anything to the minutes I send you guys in like email form. Not that I remember.
So if there's a resolution, right, just for clarification, in the minutes, how do we capture? So looking back historically, a member of the public, et cetera, can tell, what we've approved. If there's a program of study, then all that's being reflected is we voted on some program of study, or we voted on some House bill dated today or whatever. But we're not actually capturing the record of what we are voting on. Is that correct?
If you go back to like
So I'm at a meeting right now, March 9th. I went back to one of the ones back and it has the attachments on the meeting minutes. This is the one that I downloaded from the website. So yes, they used to be on there.
Yeah, that was back in March 20. That was March 2022. So that's like I said,
Correct.
I have never made attachments on the board meeting minutes.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why it stopped. And I mean, the explanation was that it can't be done. And I'm concerned about that, Adam, because also when you said the checkbooks aren't there, but Reynoldsburg currently is using the checkbook. And so is, I pulled up a couple of them right off the bat. Southwestern City School, they have even 2025 on there. So this has been done before. We did it the whole time, 20, 21, 22. So I'm concerned now why.
Like I said, I've
hearing
never
two
used it, and
different
I've never had any of the attachments. Because you can go back to the board minutes. It's something if I can look into, but like I said, I've never.
I mean, the way I see it is if the attachments aren't there, they're not complete. If you don't have the contract on the meeting minutes, then the meeting minutes aren't complete. So when the people come, maybe they just moved to the district, right? And they want to look at it and they go to that meeting and it says, approve this contract, but there's nothing there. It's not, the attachment's not there. In the past, they always have been. That's what I'm saying. You can vote. I don't have
All right.
anything else.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, it's just Adam, your reference for us, Hamilton schools, did you not have the attachments?
No.
Okay.
All right, on to roll call, please.
Mr. Kirschner,
No.
Mrs. Dutterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
and Mrs. Walsh.
No.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve payment in lieu for transportation reimbursement. The Ohio law allows for public school districts to determine the impracticality of transporting resident students attending schools not located within the district after consideration of a number of factors. Upon that determination, the district is permitted to offer payment in lieu of transportation to the parent or guardian. Transportation Department has completed studies, and residents in the affected areas will be offered payment in lieu for the 2024-2025 school year. The initial list of families being offered payment in lieu of transportation is attached as an executive content since it lists the students' names.
So
So move.
All right.
Who was
I had
first?
Mrs. Dowdleberger as first, and then Mr. Kirschner. Do you want to be second?
That's fine. Thank
Okay. Mr. Kirschner as second. On to discussion. Hearing none, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
No.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mrs. Dutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the following certificated personnel items as outlined in the attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Dowdleberger as first and Mrs. Gray as second. On to discussion.
I have nothing to add unless there are questions. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Hearing none, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Dutterberger,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the following non-certificated personnel items as outlined on the attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dowdleberger as first and Mrs. Gray as second. On to discussion. Hearing none, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Dutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the special education contracts with Solian and amendment to the original agreement with I Am Boundless Inc. as outlined in the attachments.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dowdleberger as first, Mrs. Gray as second. On to discussion. Hearing none, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Dutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
Item 9, the superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School track trip to Springfield School as indicated on the attached form.
So moved.
Second.
I have Mrs. Dowdleberger as first and Mr. Kirschner as second.
Okay.
On to discussion. Hearing none, on to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Dutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Ohio HOSA-SLC Health Services Pathway overnight trip as indicated in the attached form.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dowdleberger as first and Mrs. Gray as second. On to discussion.
And this is for, what was this for? It's hard to read it.
The health sciences pathway overnight trip. It's a trip for health science.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
On to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Dutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School boys basketball and cheerleading trip to Wittenberg University, March 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dowdleberger as first, Mrs. Gray as second. On to discussion.
Is that for track meet? State, it looks like state.
No,
Conference?
we have our men's basketball team won the first regional basketball game at Wittenberg, and then played for the regional finals. That was the late addition that we added, and then there was also a trip for practice. So the fourth we competed, March 7th on Friday we practiced at Wittenberg, and then on Saturday we practiced. And I didn't say this before, but any trip that's over 50 miles, or in some cases if it's an overnight trip, which is why the One Health Services, any 50 trip over 50 mile needs to be approved by the board. And Mr. Smathers mentioned CVS actually donated 2 school buses as spirit buses to take kids along, and we took donations and paid for I think approximately 80 admissions, 80 student admissions from donations. Those are from our staff, but CVS donated the buses, which that was a very big expense. It would have been that they gave to us.
So in the past, they've always had who the chauffeurs were. Is there a reason we're not doing that? Because that might, oh, it is. No, it didn't have the chaperones there. Because some of us have people who work for the district, so we may have to abstain if we don't know who it is, being the chaperone.
I'm sorry, I did not follow the line of your statement. What were you saying?
I was saying, in the past, we've always shown who the chaperones were. Just not the students, but who the chaperones, the adults were. And that was just in case any of us had an adult who was working for the district, we would know. So then we would abstain from the vote because we can't vote on that then. So that's not listed here. So I'm just curious why we're not listing that anymore.
These are our basketball and cheerleading programs.
Right, just
I
a
guess-
student and staff.
Oh.
So like in the future, can you go ahead and put the chaperones down, list them separately?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? On to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh,
No.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Stuttelberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Christian.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just for a point of clarification, there were no spirit buses. We just voted on the March 4th one. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
That's correct.
Okay. There was only our teams, our coaches on that. The spirit bus is what was added to Saturday.
Which is the 8th.
Okay.
Yep.
So I want to make sure that was clear. Okay. So the addition. Okay, the addition, superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School boys basketball and cheerleading trip to Wittenberg University, March 8th. My copy of the agenda is not showing the
It's 7th. There's one at 7th.
March 7th. That was when the team practiced there.
And then
So-
there's a second for March 8th.
So moved for the March 7th.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay.
So this is the approved the boys basketball trip March 7th.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
number 12.
Yep. And who first, second?
Latoya.
Toya
And
and
I second.
On to discussion.
That was the day the team went to practice at Wittenberg.
correct.
So that's coaches.
Just coaches and team.
Thank you.
On to roll call, please.
Ms. Walsh,
Aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Stuttelberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Christian.
Aye.
Motion passes.
superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School boys basketball and cheerleading trip to Wittenberg University, March 8th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dottelberger as first,
Got it.
Mr. Kirschner as second.
Mhm.
Under discussion.
This is the one that we had our students on a charter bus, our team on the charter bus, and we had our student spirit buses where we took volunteers and had teachers chaperoning that. I'm sorry, I blended those together.
No problem. Thank you for clarification, sir.
All right, onto roll call, please.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Dottelberger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Can I speak out of turn real quick on these since they're, oh, I see, some of them aren't passed. Okay, no, they are. And these, in the future, is there any reason why, since they're already past events, why they couldn't just be one motion, or is there a reason?
I would love
Well-
for them to be a consent agenda.
Yeah, normally,
That'd be
normally
great.
these would all be on a consent agenda. It would be one vote to address all of it.
So we've
Okay,
pulled
but-
everything out based off the board preference.
Okay, thank you.
The superintendent recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School senior class trip to Kings Island.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dottelberger as first, Mrs. Gray as second. Onto discussion. Hearing none, onto roll call, please.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Dottelberger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes.
Superintendent recommends Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the Groveport Madison High School choir trip to Princeton High School and Kings Island.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mrs. Dottelberger is first and Mrs. Gray is second. Onto discussion. Hearing none, onto roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh?
Aye.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mrs. Dottelberger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Motion passes. On to H, Treasurer's Agenda.
Yep, let me hook up. Come on, computer. I'll present my screen. Okay. Treasurer's reports. There we go. Treasurer's reports for February. Our income coming in, our total revenue is 4.86 million. Our total expenditures are 7.8 million. A shortfall of about 2.7 million, which again, actually the numbers came in a little bit better than I had on my estimates. So about 130,000. So I'm happy about that. March 28th, we get our settlement in, hopefully. So either March or April will be our big next tax settlement. So, but my numbers came in actually a little bit better, about 130,000 more or better than my estimates. Receipts again, 4.6 million of it is state foundation. And just to reiterate that, what the resolution we passed earlier, that's why the state foundation is so important to Groveport. And then cutting our funding in 2 years, that would be bad for.
So you're saying
public
the
schools.
state funding formula, that's
Yes,
what
the
you're
state funding formula
the
is the state
fair
foundation.
funding plan.
Correct.
Okay. Just so that they heard that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Expenditures, same thing again, about 74.6% of our expenditures are for personnel and then insurance and retirement, which is very normal. Change for prior year, so from previous February, we did get a big DPIA, $1 million. It finally, it's supposed to come through the year, but we finally got it. It was a dump of $1 million, so that was a big discrepancy in 1.04. Other than that, most expenses stayed the same from previous year. Purchase services was a little bit higher, just because of special ed costs and some busing costs. But other than that, they stayed pretty familiar or pretty similar since February 2024 to February 2025.
That's a question since you brought up the funding costs for special education really quick. Are we starting to see an increase on items needed for those services?
Very little, very minimal.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason I don't know why, but yeah, very minimal. But like we increased students this year, and it's still funding's not going up.
So I'm saying, are the pricing, the costs for
The cost
for the
I think it's all
services,
revenue.
not
cost.
yeah,
special
not
ed.
not the funding. I know the funding's going down.
Yeah,
We got
yeah.
that.
We have
But the
more kids,
costs
more
are
kids with
going up.
autism. Yep.
Like what you would normally pay on average is not what it used to be a couple years ago. Like since post COVID.
I think the cost may be a little bit increased, but it's the number of special ed kids
Okay.
with autism. That's and right now we're sending them to different schools. Where as you see, we had 4 or 5 special ed contracts on there today.
Yes, sir.
It's expensive.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So just to be clear, you have you or have you not seen much funding change?
Special ed. No, if you look at kind of my 5-year forecast, we may be going up 800,000 this year. I mean, I'll have to pull it up. I mean, it's not a whole lot compared to what our salaries and purchase services and stuff's going on. So when you're saying, and this is why the resolution came out, when you're saying we're going to get 400,000 increase next year, according to the plan now, all estimates, but then at negative 880, you're expecting schools to, Groveport anyways, to run on less money for this year than 2 years from now.
Yeah, I
It's a
was
tough
simply
task.
referring to that. She was asking about the special needs.
Yeah.
And
But our special ed are increasing because we have more kids with autism and special ed needs.
okay, thank you.
Yep. My next item, go back to the board meeting. That is just I'll read it. The treasurer recommends that the Groveport Madison Schools Board of Education approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Franklin County Budget Commission. This is well, I guess I need first and second first.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gray is first, and Mrs.
Could you,
Gallagher is second.
Yep.
I'm sorry, the last part came across this as well, I guess, any first and second first.
Yeah, I was going to discuss it, but I went on to first and second before I started discussing it.
Okay, thank you.
These are just yearly. Every year we have to do these rates for the Franklin County. So this is nothing abnormal. Every year we have to do these.
Thank you.
Sets of tax rates. Yep.
Any other discussion?
So there's nothing out of the norm, is what
No,
you're saying.
every year we have to do this.
Thank you.
I got to give it to the county. Correct.
On to roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh.
Aye.
Mrs. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Ms. Felderberger.
Aye.
And Mr. Kirschner.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes.
And I like that one. I know we're almost done. I like that one thing. On the Ohio checkbook, I did go through all the schools, and Southwestern City is on there, but all of the rest of them are not. Like I checked Hilliard, it's only to 23, and then they stopped.
Hilliard was August 8th of 22. Reynoldsburg, May of 24.
And Reynoldsburg has
Brand
stuff
New
in it.
Heights.
Well, Reynoldsburg has stuff in 24, but it's not accurate. It's only half their. They
Yeah,
stopped doing it.
right.
In 23, they only did 19 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Reynoldsburg, they stopped doing it, and in 22, they did a little bit in 23 and a little bit in 24, but it wasn't their full stuff. But that's what's Southwestern
Did
City.
they change treasurers?
Reynoldsburg, no, she's been there for a while.
Okay.
No. So that's one.
Brand New Heights.
I'll double check. But the rest of the school districts in Franklin County do not. Right, have never used it except for those. Yeah. And that's all I have.
All right, on to comments, announcements, and other business.
Yes, I have a few. We've already touched on one, and that is the meeting lengths. If we could work towards not overloading our meetings, I think that would make us a better board, get along better. I do think there should be an opportunity to discuss to the public our thoughts and et cetera on the treasurer's contract. Again, all our deliberation was in the back, and by the time we'd gotten out here, it was 1:30, 1:35 in the morning. I have one motion I would like to bring, and we in the past years since I arrived here, we had a student that was threatened to refer to her as student H with gang rape. We asked a lot of questions, and the answers that we got contradict what the family is saying, and I have concerns. I found in our board policy that the board reserves the right to investigate and resolve a complaint or reported or unlawful harassment retaliation, regardless of whether the member of the school district, community, or third party alleging the unlawful harassment retaliation pursues the complaint. The board also reviews the right to have the formal complaint investigation conducted by an external person in accordance with this policy or in such other manner as deemed appropriate by the board or its designee, which shall be in substantial compliance with this policy. I have no reason to have confidence that the reporting was complete, and Title IX was followed. So, and I've asked and I've dug, and no police reports can be produced, and I've not been shown anything that shows me that we did our correct diligence. So, I move that the board move to an independent investigation on this matter.
I'll second that. But I would also add that in our parent advisory meeting minutes, we had a parent who's very concerned that her child has not been treated fairly. That was brought up in the meeting minutes. I think we would investigate that also. You know, the parent doesn't have to file a complaint. The board can overrule that and say, hey, there is some problem here. So I think we should have an external investigation into these. Those would be two places to start. I would agree.
If we could keep this, my motion as it stands, and then we can address that, or potentially give the district an opportunity to
I withdraw my amendment.
to provide the investigative details into that. I think we've given them that opportunity here, so I would like this motion to stand as read, and then if you would like to bring a separate motion.
I'll withdraw my amendment then.
I'd like to make a motion for a 5-minute recess before we vote on these motions. That would give me time to look at our board policies as well on this. So I'd make a motion for
Second.
a 5-minute recess.
I would say that the policy, just so you know, is AC/ACA/ACB. And I think it's
First recess and the second
Latoya.
5-minute recess, yeah. And if you're looking at a PDF, I think it's
Yeah.
page A, the second paragraph. I don't know. But
On to roll call, please.
Roll call, Ms. Walsh,
aye.
Mrs. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Stutterberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirschner.
All right, it is 8:53. We are adjourned for a 5-minute recess. All right, it is 9:01. We're back from recess. We have, let's start with Mr. Kirshner. Do you mind saying your motion?
Alrighty.
You have a copy of it though to share with the board this evening?
No. I will read the policy and try my best to restate the motion. The board reserves the right to investigate and resolve a complaint or report of unlawful harassment, retaliation, regardless of whether the member of the school district, community, or third party alleging the unlawful harassment or retaliation pursues the complaint. The board also reserves the right to have the formal complaint investigation conducted by an external person in accordance with this policy or in such other manner as deemed appropriate by the board or its designee, which shall be in substantial completion with this policy. Regarding student H, which the board is aware, I feel that the information provided was not complete and the investigation was not thorough, and therefore I move that the board employ or engage a outside investigator for this matter.
I second.
All right, Mr. Kirshner was first, Mrs. Walsh second. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to know what you found out in your reading of the policy. It seemed like it was a little mini board meeting going on.
No, it was not a mini board meeting, and we're going to go on to voting here in a second.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to say that even though I think this has been completely and fully investigated, I welcome the chance to have an outside person come and do this. We'll have the district's expense to do this to confirm that what has already been done was done appropriately. What was able to be shared was shared with board members, and I'm going to say that some of the things stated publicly here are patently false. And I think that there are people aware that they're making patently false statements to the public. So we can have an outside investigator do it. That's great.
I'm sorry. Could you clarify what you believe is patently false?
Well, do you want me to specifically say it?
Sure.
You've repeatedly said gang rape. That is not the case. You've been told that it's not gang rape. The comment was gang bang. And I've given you other details about this of what happened, that students were disciplined and things have taken place. And there have been other things you've asked for that I've told you in writing that you did not have legal authority to get that information. So the only thing that's been withheld are things that are legally required to be withheld because you didn't have an education interest in that information. So I don't think it's appropriate to say false statements to the public and paint a picture that's not accurate.
Right. Okay, I appreciate your vantage point, but let me clarify this. If you say to my daughter that you are going to gang bang her and she's not interested, that is gang rape. You can call it whatever you want. Okay.
They did not.
And you don't know that. You know what you heard, and she knows what she thinks she heard. So it's a different vantage point. It's not a patently true or patently false thing. Okay. The child believes she heard
Can
gang
we call
rape.
the question since we're speaking about
now,
a student? I would like to call the question.
I'm going to call the question.
Thank you.
On to vote, please.
Calling the question is not intended to silence a board member.
I understand
No,
that,
it's
but
not.
I don't feel comfortable with the conversation.
All right.
He has a right to have a 5-minute discussion on this. And that is
Ms. Walsh, I'm not here to argue. I just said what
I was accused of making false statements, and I just simply attempting
everyone
to
has
clarify.
had an opportunity to speak. You made your statements. It was brought up that they thought they were false. That's fair. At this point, the goal is for the board to get the investigation, and I just want to make sure we get that addressed. But I understand everyone make the comment, but at this point, it's a lot of back and forth. And at the end of the day, the goal is to go ahead and get the independent investigation voted on by the board, and for us to get that scheduled.
Thank you.
On to roll call, please.
Roll call. Mrs. Walsh.
Aye.
Mrs. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Mrs. Dutterberger.
Aye.
And Mr. Kirshner.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to, we had a second motion by Mrs. Walsh. Mrs. Walsh, if you
Did you withdraw?
could please.
She withdrew her.
Oh, withdraw. Okay. All right. Any other comments, announcements, or other business?
I do. Number one, happy birthday to Mr. Adam Collier.
Oh,
I thought I was walking away with it, like almost.
He is 50 years old today. That means after this meeting, we're going to cut him in half and count the rings. Also, Middle School North and Sedalia Elementary School are recognized with Momentum Award. That means that their performance index increased by at least 3% and their value added score was 4 or more stars. So congratulations to them. Ty's most recent Mainly News talks about this and talks about a lot of things. I think it's a great newsletter that has gone out. We had a wonderful state of the school. Oh, yeah. I don't know that there were as many horse puns in this episode. Okay. Okay. State of the School celebration this last week went very well. We had a nice turnout. I think the families enjoyed it. It was a very positive event, along with the Black History Month celebration last month. We also have Her Story coming up, and I don't want to misquote the date. Is it the 18th? March 18th, the Her Story event at the high school. And I think we've put this in the bookmobile. I don't know if we've talked about this here at bookmobile. I think we put this in the board update. I don't know if we've talked about it here, but our construction class who built the tiny home last year is turning one of our old buses into a bookmobile, and we're actually going to submit that to OSBA as a student work. That hopefully we can have that go down to Capitol Conference again. And last thing I would say to Mr. Kirshner's comments a little bit ago about making our board meetings shorter, I would love for the board to consider going back to using the consent agenda. It's in our board policy. It's a best practice. If there's, taking individual numerous votes on things that are somewhat automatic, you can have discussion even with the consent agenda. I know that we have gone away from that and pull all those out as individual items, but I think that would save us a lot of time if we went back to that.
Yes, and I would like to make a motion to do that, to go to a consent agenda rather than voting individually. And if an item needs to be pulled out, it can be pulled out and voted on separately if need be.
Second.
Okay, I have Mrs. Gray as first, Mrs. Dowdell-Berger as second. On to discussion, please.
And real quick, just because I got to write this down, we're motion to reinstate the consent agenda.
Yes.
I think having things like the trips in there would be fine. I don't think the meeting minutes should be in there, and I don't think contracts that have dollar amounts on them should be in there. So can we kind of do a hybrid consent agenda?
I would just say really we're agreeing to try it again, but there really is no need for a motion, and really nothing is changing. We create the agenda to the will of the board, and then if someone wants to pull it out, they can pull it out. It's always been that way, so I agree.
Yeah, we still have the motion on the agenda
Who
here.
first and second is that?
Mrs. Gray was first, Mrs. Dowdell-Berger was second.
Okay.
Sorry, roll call, please.
Mrs. Walsh?
No.
Mrs. Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Ms. Dowdell-Berger?
Aye.
And Mr. Kirshner?
Abstain.
All right, motion passes. Any other comments, announcements, or other business?
Yes, I have one. I'll be real brief. I would like to go more in depth in this, but I don't want to at this time in the interest of time. When we had the OSBA, I went to a conference on board committees. Toledo presented, and there's a lot of value in having board committees. One of the most important is our policy committee. We've passed on a lot of policies we should have, simply because we haven't put the time into it. But when I went into the board policy that I quoted tonight, and many board policies, they aren't properly delineated. They are in conflict. They conflict with each other. This particular policy I can't find anywhere else in any other district with the OSBA. So I don't know how it came to end up being, but I can tell you if you try to sit down and discuss policy with another person, it's almost impossible because there are no page numbers, there are no paragraph numbers. So we definitely need to improve our board policy. Had we stuck with a policy committee, I am convinced that we would have been through the entire policy book by now or close to it. And I think we need to rededicate ourselves to that, and also the support of other committees that would help us be more prepared for these meetings and not have to spend so much time. One of the things that Toledo pointed out was they think anything beyond 2 hours is a long meeting, and their meetings are short because their policy committees get the information before the board in an organized fashion, and everything is reviewed ahead of time, and it just helps streamline. And the superintendent said basically it allows the board, as he's called it, to do the grunt work and free up him to do the larger projects that are in front of them. So that is it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would follow up on that, John. I think we should have that on the agenda for the next meeting. Can we commit to that? And we can review policy BCE. And we can review a resolution that was passed at the January 22nd meeting, 2023. For the policy committee and the student advisory committee. I can get more information to you. Can we commit to that, Mr. President?
We'll see.
Sorry, writing notes here. You said BCD, policy committee, and student advisory.
BCE.
You want on the next
Copy of it
agenda?
for you if you would like.
We can put it on the agenda. BCE.
Yes.
All right. Sure.
And
Let's commit to it.
the resolution to establish the student advisory and the resolution to establish the policy committee. And we also had a resolution to have a facilities committee. Add that on there too. I guess they're all committees. I don't believe we ever did pass a resolution to have the parent advisory committee.
So how about we have a
could have
discussion?
that on there too.
How about we have a discussion of committees? Is that fair? Okay. All right. We can.
Perfect.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Let me just write that down real quick. Any other comments, announcements, or other business?
Just that we had our student advisory committee for the elementary school, and some good news on the iReady versus the I can't think of the name of it again, but they call it's something else though. What's the name? The no. Amplify. It was funny because at first they started out with the discussion that they did not like Amplify. Well, what it all boiled down to was that they had to do 2 clicks rather than click. They had to click out of iReady to go to Amplify. But the great thing that came out of it was during the discussions, it was determined that the students, I'd ask all the students, okay, how many was on iReady last year and now you're on Amplify this year? Almost everyone raised their hands. Then I asked them, okay, have your grades improved since being on Amplify? And all but 1 out of the 24 said their grades improved. And that they have felt that they have learned a lot more, that they love how it's very interactive. And so that was really good to hear, as a board, we approved moving to that, and it was very good. So I thought I wanted to share that so that you could hear that what you brought to us is working. So, but it was really good, and they want to talk about their cell phone policy next. So they want the cell phones out of the classroom. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to add is that the Burger Book Scholarship will be opening up for the high school's graduating seniors on the 24th of March. So I'll be making sure Mr. Davidoff has everything he needs, but wanted to let everyone know that if you have a graduating Groveport Madison High School senior, they should consider applying. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the women's. We're having a women's. I got an email about it, but it didn't have an agenda like who the speakers were and all that. Is that something? I don't know who's doing that. Is that you?
Amy just talked about that.
I don't know who the speakers are.
Jamie, could you please look into that for me? And I would love to have an agenda of the speakers. That'd be great. Thank you.
Excuse me, Board President, I'd like to make sure we definitely recognize, and you know, we do a lot here, but it hasn't been 40 years since our boys varsity basketball team made it to the districts.
Yes.
And then it's been over 90 years since they made it to the regionals and they won the first round of the regionals. But the main thing is what that does for the entire community and how the community came around to support. There were so many donations. We were making sure the kids and the cheerleaders were fed, the players were fed, the school community really came together. It was outstanding. There was almost 60 staff members there. 60 staff members drove all the way down there to watch the basketball game, and it was just more than a basketball game. It was just so much pride. And I do want to give a shout out for Mayor Westcamp. He didn't miss a game. He came to every one. He drove all the way, and he's probably one of the biggest fans. But it's just the amount of pride. There's so much cruiser pride. It was amazing to see, and it really makes a difference for our community.
Could we schedule something to have them honored?
Yeah, we'll,
meeting?
we'll be
Yeah.
bringing them in.
April.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
One more thing. It's a part of the community. I just have to say this, that the Madison Township Police and Fire and the Groveport Police escorted our kids to the freeway each time. They were more than happy to do it, and it was like the highlight of their month.
Yeah.
They loved it tremendously, and they all thanked us a lot, but we can't thank them enough.
Excellent. OCC #1. All right. Any other comments? Not on to item J. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Whoa, okay.
Second.
All right.
Second.
I'll
So
go.
moved.
I don't know.
Doesn't
All
matter.
right. Mrs. Donalberger.
Who was first?
Mrs. Donalberger.
And then Kathy second. Okay.
All right. And then Kathy second.
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh. All right.
All right.
On to roll call, please.
Ms. Walsh,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Duttelberger,
Aye.
and Mr. Kirchner. Yeah, 9:18.
It is 9:18. We are adjourned.